So today's July 28th is the last Sunday in July 2019. Our sermon topic is loving the disciples of Christ. And of course, I'm Reverend Walter Frank Jr., Pastor Family Church of San Diego, Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, which we like the idea, right? The whole world is becoming unified already on several fronts that don't seem to bother anybody. For example, the world is uniting on mathematics. Everybody uses the same mathematics. In China, by the way, if you go to China and you go to, or let's say Taiwan, I was in Taiwan, and you go to the chemistry lab in Taiwan, you know they use American textbooks? They all have to learn English to learn chemistry. And Honduras as well.
Study chemistry.
So chemistry, the scientific texts are the same all over the world. So there's certain things that are making the world one place. And I'll show you some of the other things today. So our sermon topic is loving the disciples of Christ, from which is the central history of mankind. But first, let's talk about money and spirituality. I thought recently we've gotten requests for donations from headquarters to move the movement forward. I think it was Napoleon who said his army travels on its what? On its stomach, right? He said because he had to feed them or they can't move anywhere, and to feed them they need money. Same with our movement. If we were a movement, we had to have money donations to grow and to develop. Same as everything. If you want to find a cure of cancer, they're trying to cure cancer. What do they say? Give us money so we can cure cancer. That's not weird, and it's not sick, and it's not strange. It's natural. We want to cure cancer. We want to allow Christianity to understand true parents. So money and spirituality seem to go together. First, let's study asceticism, one of my favorite topics. Something we all love to talk about all the time. Let's make an ascetic condition today, right? Don't we say that? Asceticism is from Greek, meaning exercise or training. It is a lifestyle characterized by abstinence from sensual pleasures. No chocolate cake for me today. No. Often the purpose of pursuing spiritual goals. So the reason people choose a lifestyle of abstinence from sensual pleasures is for the purpose of pursuing a spiritual goal, right? Ascetics may withdraw from the world for their practices or continue to be a part of their society, but typically adopt a frugal lifestyle. And most often we know about ascetics who live in caves or live in the desert, characterized by the renunciation of material possessions and physical pleasures. People who sleep on beds of nails, stuff like that. And time spent fasting, while concentrating on the practice of religion or reflection upon spiritual matters. Interesting, right? We've all fasted, right? I fasted, prayed. Asceticism has been historically observed in many religious traditions, including Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, Christianity, and Judaism. It's sort of like a worldwide trend of all religions to think about asceticism, right? Sort of like unifies, one of the things that unifies all religions is asceticism, or the idea that we should somehow be ascetic. The idea is that somehow our mind should dominate our body, right? Our mind should dominate our body. And this is universal. Thank you, Father. Moses, for example, fasted 40 days and 40 nights. That's a tough ascetic condition, right? That's an absence of sensual pleasure. Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. Moses was at least on top of a mountain. Anybody been alone in the desert at night? Yeah, I have. Actually, by the way, it's scary. You know, even I fear neither man nor beast. The dark scares me. Anyhow, being alone in the dark is terrifying. And small, creepy places. Anyhow, we believe that due to the fall of man, why is asceticism universally a religious feature or value? And that is because due to the fall of man, our human bodies became enemies of our minds and enemies of our spirit. That is, our body tends to dominate our mind and heart, which should be knowledge, should be kindness, should be loving, but instead we become selfish, right? Sometimes, probably none of you guys do this, but sometimes when you see the last piece of cake on the table, you think, I'd really like that last piece of cake. I wonder if anybody else wants that piece of cake. You know they all want it, but sometimes we reach for that last piece of cake because our body wants us to. Even your mind might say, what? I don't need this piece of cake, especially me, by the way. Anyhow, so our bodies dominate our minds. This prompted Jesus to say this. That is, look at this. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Don't do it. Stop it. But I tell you that anyone who looks, just sees a woman, just use your eyes to see a woman in a lecherous or adulterous fashion, just that is a cause for sin. Anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in her heart, right? If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. Wow, that's pretty ascetic, right? That's pretty severe ascetic condition. That would be a lack of sensual pleasure, gouging that baby out and throwing it away. It is better it's better for you to lose one part of your physical body than your whole body to be thrown into hell, because your body. Now, I don't know about women, right? I could clearly tell you men have an issue with looking at physically attractive women, right? That's why there's Playboy magazines and all those other kinds of things, right? That's why it exists. That's why those guys make millions and millions, if not billions of dollars, because the masculine eye wants to see that, and that's a fallen nature, we say. That's a kind of lustful nature, and it's sensual pleasure. By the way, it's a sensual pleasure for men to look at naked women, right? It's a sensual pleasure. By the way, it is. But we shouldn't do it. Why? And why not? Because our body should be centered on our mind, and our mind should understand God made them male and female, that one man and one woman would be together, and you should enjoy the pleasures of your wife, but nobody else's wife, right? No one else's daughter, right? If you looked at another man's daughter naked, if somebody saw my daughter naked besides her husband, I'd beat him up, right? That would be the natural thing to do. In the old days, you know, I always say this, in the old days, farmers had 2 words to protect the chastity of their daughters. Do you know what those 2 words were? Shotgun. Right? How'd you know that? Anyhow, he knew it. Shotgun. That's exactly correct, because the chastity of their daughters was so valuable and so precious that they would rather kill a person than let him hurt their daughter. So that's why Jesus says, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out, because you're doing something that's effectually, spiritually murderous to the young woman and to yourself. It's spiritually murderous to you to do that. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell, right? And people automatically fight, hit, touch, right? People are tempted to touch one another in illicit or adulterous or lecherous ways. People are tempted. They say, when people do that, they say, well, I was driven to do that. My body drove my mind to accept this sinful nature. So this idea of asceticism is universal. By the way, that's not just Christians and it's not just Jews. It's Buddhists, it's Hindus. Everybody feels the same way. Zen Buddhists. So let's look at this. Why? Because we say our body is an animal body. We're animal bodies that are governed by animal feelings. We have a hypothalamus just like all the other animals have. It's called a reptilian stem, because we believe God built everything on a step-by-step process, on a building block basis till we get to human beings. And because we're supposed to dominate all animals. Aren't we supposed to dominate all animals? That's the third blessing. We have to be able to relate to animals. So we have to be part animal. Does that make sense? For a man to love his wife, a man has to get in touch with his feminine side. So God had to put his feminine side in men in order to love and understand their wives. And God had to put a masculine side in women for women to be able to understand and love their husbands. Does that make sense? Just we're not in touch with them. Because of fallen nature, we're not in touch with our divine side. Our mind and spirit is divine. But because of the fall of men, then we tend to be dominated by our animal side, which always wants the last piece of cake. Or wants to eat too much candy. Or wants to sleep too late. Or all those different kinds of things, right? We become dominated by our body. And so Jesus says, no, you have to reverse that order. So your mind, make sure you don't commit adultery. Your mind has to hear and believe the word of God. Do not commit adultery, and then you don't do it. So that's why we do a set of conditions. So our mind will dominate our body. That's why Buddhists do it, Zen Buddhists do it, all those Christians do it, Hebrews do it, Moses fasted 40 days and 40 nights. Because our mind is weak, our bodily desires can lead us into trouble. Our mind and body are still subject to divine law, whether we believe it or not. Right? Next. So therefore, material wealth can be a handicap. Material wealth can be a handicap. Let's listen to this story. There's a rich man who asked Jesus, what should I do to become perfect? And Jesus answered him. Matthew 5:21. Jesus answered, if you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. What a tragedy. He missed Jesus Christ because he had great wealth. Well, was his wealth good for him or not? Wealth was bad for him, at least in his mind. Let's keep reading. Then Jesus said to his disciples, truly I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. That sounds pretty tragic, right? So do rich people never get to heaven? Of course they do. Okay, number one. What does camel going through the eye of a needle mean, right? People always think, does that mean you have to grind them into like hamburger? Little pieces of hamburger and put them through that little needle hole for them to get to heaven? Then there'll be like a ground camel hamburger that gets into heaven? That's all? No. To go through the eye of the needle was when they would corral camels. They would have an arch, so the camel doesn't naturally crawl on his knees, right? But the trainers of the camel would train the camel to get on his knees and be led by a lead into the corral, and then he could stand up and be free. But they wouldn't go out by themselves. So when Jesus says the camel go through the eye of the needle, it means he has to go into the corral, be led by the trainer and led into the corral, and then he won't run away, right? That's what it means. So when he says the rich person can't like that, then it doesn't mean that the rich person, that the money makes him evil. It means that he's not obedient to God. Just like this young man couldn't be obedient to God because he'd rather have all his money for himself than to give to the poor or help Jesus or something like that. Well, I'll read a couple other stories about that. Peter answered him, on the other hand, look at us. We have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us? We're broke. We're tired. You have no place to lay your head, but you know what? We don't either. We're hungry. What's for lunch today? Anyway, Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for my sake receive 100 times as much and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. So these poor apostles were starving, hungry, tired. That's us, exactly right. But look at this guy. Very wealthy. Is he going to be on one of the 12 thrones of heaven? No. He decided he'd rather have money on earth than serve the Lord. Okay, now I'm going to tell you another story, which is one of my favorite stories. If we are successful financially, are we doomed to hell? What if you happen to be a great salesman and you sell machinery and you do very well? Are you doomed to hell? Or what if you're an electrical engineer or a painter and you own your own painting company or whatever you guys are doing, right? Should we sell all our possessions, take a vow of poverty, and live only for the sake of others? Actually, true father said, no, I don't like that idea. I want you to take care of yourself and take care of your family. And I'll show you why. Let me show you why and how this works. How then shall we live? Listen to this. Okay, here's originally, absolutely not. Originally, humans were not supposed to live an ascetic lifestyle. That is not what we are designed for. Our skin is soft. We have no claws. We can't bite anything. We can barely climb a tree, right? No. So God said the original blessings, God blessed them and said to them, listen, be fruitful and multiply, increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Then listen to this one. Listen to this part. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and over every living creature that moves in the earth. That's why we have to be part animal. That's why, but it has to be a bottom part of us, not the top, right? But listen to this. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth. Everything is for you. Does that sound like a poor person? No, we have unlimited pecan trees, pistachio trees, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. It's yours. I give it to you free. Unlimited food. Does that sound like an ascetic condition? No, I love fruit. Especially now, you have cherries, you have apples, oranges. It's delicious, right? That's not a sensory deprivation. God is saying, look, I'm giving you beautiful colors, beautiful tastes. I'm giving you protein-rich fruits and nuts and seeds. I'm giving you everything you need for free. No ascetic conditions. That's how we were supposed to be. It was only during the fall of man, during a timetable, that we had to live ascetic conditions. Okay. Here's my second favorite Bible story. During Jesus' life, perhaps that rich man would have made a giant difference in human history. So you might ask yourself, why would Jesus give that rich man such a tough condition? What if Jesus said, just give half your wealth to the poor, keep your other half, and then join me and follow me? And what if he made a deal like that? Wouldn't that be great? Yes. Then maybe he would have been a significant John the Baptist figure in Jesus' life. Because here's the second story about other rich man. Listen to this story. Here's another story about wealth. It's called Zacchaeus, the tax collector, who was considered a sinner by the Jewish people. They hated tax collectors. In those days, the tax collector kept a part of all the taxes he found for Rome, right? He would go to your house and think, oh, you got a new vase? Quick, tax on that. Quick $5. Oh, I see you got a new, you fixed your window. Oh, tax on that. And so whatever he would tax them, he would get a portion of it. So people hated him because he'd be looking around finding, just like the IRS, finding every dollar you make. No cash purchases. You better have a receipt for that. Anyhow, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Chief, boss, head of all the other tax collectors, so it all comes to him, right? Swimming in wealth. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed the sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. So he climbed up a tree. Oh, there's Jesus now. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up to him and said, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I'm going to stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. So he wanted to see Jesus. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Somebody who's mean to us. Somebody who takes all our money from us all the time. Someone who taxes us for every single thing we get. Okay? But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, right? So all the people around, he stands up and says to the Lord, look, Lord, here now I give up half my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of everything, and everybody's hearing, out of anything I will pay back 4 times the amount. Oh, wow. This is Deuteronomy, by the way. If your man steals an ox from you, and you can find him and get the ox back, he has to give you an ox. But if you kill and eat the ox, he has to give you 4 oxen. Did you know that? It's Deuteronomy. This is ancient Hebrew law. So he's citing ancient Hebrew law centered on Jesus. So then what does Jesus say? Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. That's a great deal, isn't it? And let me tell you the rest of the story. This is what I see in the story, because this is what I do for a living. Anyhow, he only had to give up half his possessions. right? The other rich man, Jesus said, give everything. But Zacchaeus only gave half his possessions. Let's say he started with $10 million of income, right? He gave away half, which is $5 million. He still has $5 million. He's still rich. Let's say he stole a certain amount. Let's say he stole 20%. So he has to give back a certain amount of that. But he's still a rich man at the end of this. He's still got $1 million. You do the math. He's still got $1 million in his pocket. He's spiritually saved, and he's still got $1 million. Do the math. It's simple. Right? Jesus says you're saved. You're doing good. What happened? His intention changed. He heard the word of God. He felt the Holy Spirit of Jesus Christ and decided, I'm going to help the poor just like you always tell me to help the poor. Just like you tell everybody to help the poor. I'm going to help them. But I'm not going to be utterly ascetic. I'm not going to go live in the desert being I'm not doing that. I'm going to keep half my wealth. Thank you very much. So, and Jesus says, good job. This is so you can think about this. Why did Jesus give us two stories? I think so you can think about it. You have to think. How do we assist true mother? How do we assist the kingdom of heaven, but not hurt ourselves or our family? You still have to take care of your family, right? So let's keep going. Sheep and goats, my other favorite story. When the Son of Man, this is Matthew 25, chapter 25. This is a big deal in Christianity. Matthew 25:31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He'll put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say, King's God will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. From the creation of the world, prosperity was promised to human beings, not asceticism. Prosperity, the kingdom of heaven, since God created the world, wanted us to live in the kingdom of heaven. Right? No ascetic lifestyle. But let's keep going. And he says, for I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. Right? I was in prison, you came to me. Right? So, thirsty, hungry, thirsty, stranger, no clothes, sick, and or in prison. Right? 5 major themes. So then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when do we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When do we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When do we see you sick or in prison and go visit you? Right? Especially now, Jesus isn't here to get clothes, right? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. This is really important. Jesus shows the way of salvation is not thinking selfishly about yourself and getting the last piece of cake for yourself. It's sharing that piece of cake with poor people who don't have any cake, right? Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, you did not clothe me. I was sick in prison, you did not look after me. So here's the point, right? This is the same as going through the eye of the needle. It's the same as a camel going through the eye of the needle. The rich man who wouldn't share his wealth is this guy. But the people who will share the wealth, like Zacchaeus shared half his wealth, paid back what he stole, then he is one of the sheep. So that's us. This is our road to the kingdom of heaven. I want to be in the line of sheep. And when they separate the goats from the sheep, you want to be in the sheep line. Make sense? How do we do it, right? They also will answer, Lord, when do we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger, needing clothes, but did not help you? He will try to tell you, whatever you did not do for one of these least of these, you did not do for me. That's why having charity, that's why having a charity in our life is really important. To ignore charity, to ignore poor people, is a giant mistake, right? I make money, you guys make money, all of us makes money. We have to share some portion of that with the poor. Have to share some portion of that with the poor. And you can decide which poor to share with. For example, yeah, I always say that. By the way, This is the method in Methodism. You heard of the Methodist Church? Methodist Church comes from the Anglicans. John, who started the Methodist Church? Wesley. When he read Matthew 25, he was a regular church-going guy. He read Matthew 25 and he said, "Doggone it, I have to help the poor. Jesus is telling me I had to visit people." So he invented the Methodist Church, which does all these things. And from the Methodist Church came the Salvation Army, which is a charity you should give to. Right? This is how it works. 6 points, by the way. Salvation Army, abolitionist movement in the USA. The abolitionists were Quakers and Methodists, and they thought the same thing. I have to save people from slavery because I want to be like Christ. I want to be a disciple of Christ. They were ones, Methodists and Quakers, made the Underground Railroad. Right? When Harriet Tubman, the Moses of her people, brought people from the South, she would take them through the Underground Railroad, and white Christian Methodists and Quakers specifically, but there were some Northern Baptists in there, took them in and protected them at the cost of their lives. Same as the Catholics who helped the Jews during World War II in Poland, mostly in Poland, but some in Germany, some in other places, Holland. Catholic Charities comes from this. Catholic Charities runs more hospitals in the world than any government. Did you know that? There's more Catholic charity hospitals in the world than any single government in the world, more than the United States, because they have hospitals in Africa, Central South America, and China. They have to have hospitals everywhere, right? International Red Cross, that's why it's called a Red Cross, because it's a Christian movement. Bread for Life, led by Norman Borlaug, has saved billions of lives of human beings from starvation. Billions. Norman Borlaug was a great hero of the 20th century that no one ever heard of. Anyway, he was a Christian. I tell that story sometimes. Samaritan's Purse and all these things. Here's what True Father says. Here's what it means to go through the eye of the needle. This is Father's words. It is very true that the thoughts of people are usually self-centered. All right? Usually we think about our body the first. From that point of view, people think about their parents, brothers and sisters, and nation around the world. So first you start thinking about yourself, then you might think about your brothers and other people. Everyone wants to have all his circumstances centered upon himself, right? Everyone wants that last biggest piece of cake. If that is the case, how can people relate to one another? Let us take another perspective. Suppose you're working for a certain company. If you do not contribute to the welfare of that company, sooner or later you will probably be fired. Make sense? The individual must become a contributing part of a nation. In that same way, you are part of the world. The world does not exist solely for you, but you have to contribute to the world. This is just another way of Jesus' words, right? Another way of Jesus saying to live for the sake of others. Thinking more deeply, we have to ask, how can I fit into this world, nation, and society, and still be able to fulfill my own personal ideals and desires? That's very interesting, isn't it? Because I don't want to be a total ascetic. I don't want to sell my house, sell all my things, have nothing, and then just go around in rags. By the way, if you do that, then you don't have any money to give to anybody either. So Father's showing us a kind of middle way, right? Everyone has a tendency to do whatever he wants and to see events occur exactly the way he likes them. But that seldom happens. It almost never works the right way for you. Once your thinking is totally self-centered, you will find that you will be expelled wherever you go. Nobody wants to be with a selfish person. The school, the factory, and the nation will all reject a person with such thinking. So that the rich guy who won't share is the guy Jesus is talking about. Zacchaeus, on the other hand, thinks, how can I live? I know, I'll give half my wealth. How about that? How about that, Jesus? Deal. Boom. High five me, Zacchaeus. You're smart. Okay, even the spirit world and God will reject such thinking. That's the sheep and the goats. That's the meaning of sheep and goats. Sheep help others. Goats only think about themselves. I don't know about the real animals. So True Father himself, he created CAUSA to fight communism. Washington Times to protect political freedom for all human beings. Right? True parents brought the blessing for true love freedom to all mankind. Aren't we free? We're kind of not free, right? Most of us here live in a monogamous relationship of man and wife. That's sort of not free. On the other hand, it's very free, right? You're free from suffering. You're free from your wife beating you with a baseball bat, for committing adultery.
Free from illness.
Free from illness. Free from HIV. Free from all kinds of things, right? It's kind of not free. I only can be with one woman. Fortunately, I love that woman. And so fortunately, that's right. She has a bat in the closet, just in case. No, I'm just kidding about the bat. But anyway, so freedom and non-freedom go hand in hand. Freedom without responsibility, you can't be free. You quickly lose it, right? Father says, let us consider what freedom is. Does having freedom mean that you can do everything only according to your own desire? When speaking of freedom, there's one golden, ironclad rule that can be set. Freedom can exist only within the framework of consideration for the freedom of everybody else. Only upon such a public foundation can freedom truly flourish, right? The individual must recognize a larger entity before himself. You might say, well, what kind of freedom is that? I don't like that kind of freedom. But if you don't honor that standard, your freedom will only bring you destruction, chaos, and confusion, and a baseball bat. Truly, a very mistaken concept of freedom prevails in this society. Living in a free country doesn't mean that people can do whatever it feels good or follow their every impulse. However, many people have this attitude, right? This is my favorite one. Listen to this. Because this is real, this is a true sense. Listen. Think about your own spouse or fiancé. Although he or she feels very close to you, if you try to do everything centered upon yourself, the relationship will become strained. Right? This is the clue to the foundation of freedom and happiness in the world. Don't be selfish. Share what you have with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, with your family, and the world, right? There must be some common ground to which you can dedicate yourselves. When you think about all these things, you must conclude that promoting yourself above everything else is a very, very, very foolish thing to do. Amen? Okay, let's talk about it. I always suggest a charity is Schools of Africa, right? I now donate on a monthly basis to schools in Africa. Why? Because, listen to this, 10 schools, 2,000 students, 15,000 graduates. This guy says, without support New Hope School, I would not have myself now. I am a survivor of the Rwanda genocide. This is this African person, right? As differentiated from African Americans. New Hope Technical Institute gave me a Japanese foster parent who paid my school fees. After the genocide, I went back to my hometown and tried to rebuild our house, but I couldn't finish because the people who killed my family burned me in that house. I could survive only after passing a long time at the hospital. I had nowhere to go or stay, and I became a street child, right? And then this lady, Japanese sister, right? There are Japanese sisters. So utterly dedicated, she took him in and took care of him, right? So I think, myself, this is my opinion, I don't want our Japanese sisters to do all the work. I love our Japanese sisters, right? Who's better than them? They're going to Africa, I'm going to give them money. I don't want to be left alone with the goats at the great white throne judgment day of God. The Japanese women are going to be on my side. There's one now. See? Right? Japanese women are going to stand there and tell Jesus and angels, well, that knucklehead Walter Frank, he at least gave us money. He was lazy. He didn't come to Africa, but at least he worked hard and sent us money. Right? And then the angels are, okay. Put him in the sheep line. This is how life works, right? You can't save yourself. Only someone else is going to stick up for you to get to the kingdom of heaven. Somebody you helped, somebody you loved, somebody you took care of, right? Over 15,000 graduates. I want to give money to them, right? Africa is going to change. Africa's going to come back to be the new Eden in the future. Don't you want to be one of the people who help pay for that? Be in the sheep line. Okay, last 400 years of human history. Now this is my answer to the question that Father asked. How can I live with myself, with my own ideas and feelings, and still live for the sake of others? Watch, I'll show you. Centered upon redemption of mankind by the cross has been a focus on restoring the last 400 years has been a focus on restoring the first, second, and third blessings. So what happened? Here's what happened. In the house of the wise, there's Proverbs, are stores of choice food and oil, but the foolish man devours all he has, right? So, do wise people have wealth? Is the house full of choice oils and foods? Yes. But you can't do it only centered on yourself. If you don't share those things out, then you're going to lose those things. Okay, here's one of my other favorite stories. Parable of the 10 talents. This is me, right? This is me selling machinery. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Now this is really important. It's according to your ability. Some of us, well, maybe nobody in the room, has very little ability to make money. Give a penny. It's according to your ability. Some people can make more money than others. Give according to your ability. That's the rule. It doesn't mean you have to give everything up and die, or your kids have to starve. Don't do that. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. 0 return on the investment. 0. But he didn't lose the investment. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. 100% growth on the investment. That's a good deal, right? If you could get 100% growth on your investment, you'd make this guy in charge of all your money. You're the man. Master said, you have entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 bags more, 100%. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, I'll put you in charge of many things, right? Someone brings you 100% growth on your investment, you put him in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Oh, you're a good boy. I love you. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I've gained 2 more. Again, 100%. You did a great job. And the master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things, I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Let's have a big dinner. In your honor, 100% victory. Unfortunately, there's always this last tale of the story. Then the man who received 1 bag of gold comes to master. He said, I knew that you were a hard man and harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. That's like the universe. The universe is a hard place. If you do not work hard, you're probably going to be a loser. Sorry. Working hard is really important. Working smart is more important. Working hard and smart is what Reverend Moon taught us to do. He said, you work hard, you work smart, you go out and make your goal, whatever our financial goal, you go out and make it. Work hard and work smart, right? Anyway, this guy says, so I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here it is, what belongs to you. I brought 0 result. The master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown, gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the banker. So when I returned, I received it back with interest. At least 1% interest. If he got 1% interest from his bank, he would have been happy. And by the way, they still had banks with interest way back then, right? So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken away from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth and wailing and groaning and moaning and pain and suffering, right? This is the goat line. Don't get in the line with the goats. That's right. This is what Jesus says about all human. Whatever you do not despise one of these little ones, little kids. That's why I think Schools of Africa is so special. It's our charity. It's our church charity. It was founded by True Mother. We should support that. I like the Salvation Army, but when we made Schools in Africa, I decided I'm going to support Schools in Africa. It's Mother's charity. And what is it doing? It's teaching little kids. This is what Jesus says about little kids. For I tell you, they're angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Little kids, little African kids, those African kids. God bless them. Okay. Here's modern way to live an ascetic lifestyle. Here's a modern way to live your own life. All right, like I'm an industrialist. I work with manufacturers, people who invent, make things, make farming equipment, make everything. Cyrus Hall McCormick Sr., 1809 to 1884, was an American inventor and founder of McCormick Harvesting Machine Company, which became part of International Harvester Company in 1902, became Navistar International. Now, it still exists. I still sold the machinery, by the way, a couple years ago. Among other honors, McCormick was elected a corresponding member of the prestigious French Academy of Sciences. Even the French acknowledged the Irish McCormick. This is universalism gone crazy, right? French honoring an American of Irish descent, a Mick, as having done, listen to this, as having done more for the cause of agriculture than any other living man. That's pretty significant, right? That's pretty significant. Listen, here's the story. He invented a machine that positively benefited the world economy. Today, you have food on your table because of Cyrus McCormick. He invented the McCormick Reaper. He spent all his time inventing this machine. He was a farmer's kid who grew up on the farm, and he still had, he invented a machine that positively benefited the world economy. It helped bring about the mechanization of the agriculture industry, making it possible to harvest more food to feed a hungry world. Estimated he saved billions of human lives. Is he in the sheep line? Is he one who fed the hungry? Yeah. Absolutely. But did he do it by giving all his money away? No. He did it by investing his money and his mind and his brain and working hard into creating this machine that would help feed everybody. And he died a very wealthy man, by the way. All 36 wheat-producing countries in the world made use of his reaper, which has been described as the liberator of the land serf in 20 countries. He liberated people from being slaves to farms, right? And the bread machine of 1/2 of the human race. That's pretty amazing. It has also freed workers to be employed by the Industrial Revolution and the Union Army during the American Civil War. So he invented this just before the Civil War, right? And this is how people would farm in the old days. If they grew wheat, if you had 40 acres, you needed 40 people. How many acres can one man cut wheat down with a scythe, right? They used hand scythes, right? Right? Then they put a handle on it. It was like, industrialization. This is still in Ukraine. They're still doing this, by the way. That's why they're a poor country. So he invented this. Now look at these giant waves of grain, right? But only one man, a couple horses, can harvest 40 acres by himself. So a 40-acre farm became a small farm. And if you had 200 guys could do 200,000 acres of farming. Again, do the math. A philanthropist and a committed Christian. Listen to this. A philanthropist and a committed Christian, McCormick founded the McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago. He said, too often those sort of gifted with the ability to innovate in science or technology fail to place their skills at the service of humanity. He said, this is better than giving all your money to the poor. This is in service of humanity. I'm doing what I love. I'm inventing machinery. And he invented many kinds of machines, by the way. And I'm doing this, it helps mankind, feeds the poor, and I'm still wealthy. Just like Zacchaeus, right? Instead, what they invent is either destructive, potentially destructive, or adds nothing to human welfare. I was thinking of some things that they've been invented that add nothing to human welfare, but we'll stop right there. Okay, McCormick may well have been guided by his Calvinist faith, which stresses self-denial, sobriety, thriftiness, efficiency, and morality, which can result in high production and low consumption, creating a surplus that cannot be consumed, which is instead invested for the greater glory of God. These are the modern disciples of Christ. This is called the Protestant work ethic. And that's what changed the world. That's why the world has penicillin and insulin and all the medicines and all the things that we know came from this Protestant work ethic. These are the disciples of Christ in the 20th century, changing everything for human beings, right? McCormick decided at an early age that he wanted to fight hunger and saw this as a Christian task. Isn't that amazing? This is a modern tractor, harvesting. McCormick had always been a devout Presbyterian as well as an advocate of Christian unity. He also validated and demonstrated in his life the Calvinist traits of self-denial, sobriety. We did that already, right? He believed feeding the world made easier by the reaper was part of his religious mission in life. This is finding God through loving others, right? He's surely in the sheep line, the great white throne judgment day of God. He's surely going to be with the sheep, right? God, through his disciple McCormick, helps to feed all mankind. I love this story. A different kind of development of talents, right? He was given talent and he exercised his talent to the fullest of his ability. Before him, there was no such thing as a reaper. For 6,000 years of human history, they were using rocks and scythes to gather wheat. When he came, he changed the world, right? Now look, a guy with a couple of horses could gather food from this whole field, and we could have an abundance of food which never runs dry, right? Right? Look at this. This is a modern harvester where? In India. Indians now, you don't read about Indian people starving anymore. You know why? Because of Cyrus McCormick and Norman Borlaug. They changed everything. Borlaug's a different story I'll tell later. But look at this. Look at that giant tarantula. He thought a giant tarantula was coming to get him. No. You know what this is? This is an apple harvester. And he uses giant vacuums. Those are giant vacuums to suck the apples in. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. That's why you have apple juice. That's why you can afford to buy apple juice now and have apple pie. This is in Korea, I think. There's a Korean rice harvester. Are Koreans starving? No. Why not? Because of Cyrus McCormick. He didn't invent the rice harvester, but once he invented the wheat harvester, it was easy technology. You know what these guys are? This is Japan. Kubota's combine harvesters and rice transplanters have health and mechanization and rice planting. So Japanese now can feed their whole population, right? Is that good or bad? Is that feeding the hungry or not? And it's making them wealthy, right? All over the world. One single guy changes everything because he decided to use his talents to the best of his ability, follow Matthew 25, which is to feed the hungry, but he decided to feed the hungry by technology instead of just by giving all his money away. Okay, listen, this is very interesting. This is a new drip farm. Israelis are creating a new part of the Green Revolution called drip irrigation. One of my big customers is Toro Irrigation, and they invite Israeli water engineers to show them how to make drip tape for farming the deserts in California. Saves billions of gallons of water all over, right? This is a net greenhouse in Los Pinos, Mexico, the largest greenhouse tomato project in the country, developed with Israel's Netafim drip irrigation greenhouse technology, right? So this technology is taking over the whole world. It's taking over California easily and will produce enough food for everybody to have tomatoes. Yeah. Amen. And by the way, this is in a giant greenhouse. So there's no bugs, so they don't have to use insecticide because there's no bugs in the greenhouse. No gophers, no everything, whatever. Right? So I love this idea of technology. You know who got me interested in technology? Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Yeah. Reverend Sun Myung Moon put me in Salem and said, you learn how to make, build, sell, services, machinery, because machinery is what saves mankind externally. It's the third blessing is machinery. Yeah. So I'm a Tangyo guy. There are many more inventions and blessings to come from God. Believe me, God's full of bright ideas. God has super ideas. All these great inventions are led by the Holy Spirit. No question to me. That's why 400 years of human history, the last 100 years, has all been centered on the Christian cultural sphere. Everything invented, Louis Pasteur, everything invented is by this Christian cultural sphere, right? But the missing piece of the puzzle is true family values. Like Father said, when people get all the food they want, then their bodies go crazy and they start thinking free sex is what we should do instead of the freedom of monogamy. 3-generation families of love and raising up children with love. That's the goal. That's what makes true happiness. So God prepared externally for unlimited food, but without unlimited love, it will come to ruin. That's what True Father said. Without unlimited love, unlimited food will come to ruin. Technology blesses the earth with peace of food, right? This is world peace, Unification Church, world peace. Peace comes from food. People aren't killing each other for food anymore. And true parents are blessing the earth with peace of true love and families. That's what we're doing. That's what we're teaching, right? True mother is the first true Eve. And I do believe that because I understand how God works, right? Sarah is the mother of the Hebrew people, right? Everybody says Abraham is the father of the Hebrew people, but it's not true. It's really, the Hebrew people come from Sarah. Because Abraham actually had a concubine named Hagar, but the Jewish people don't come from Hagar. And after Sarah passed away, Abraham was married to a Cushite woman. I can't think of her name. Starts with a K. Anyhow, he married a Cushite woman and had another family, 6 more kids, right? But none of them are the Hebrew people. The only Hebrew people come from Sarah. This is the unifying characteristic. Sarah is the mother of the Hebrew people, right? Just like all life comes from the mother. Fathers are great, but I love fathers. But really, all life, what does that tell you about God's relationship with women? All life comes from mother. Keturah, yeah, exactly. What's that? All comes from the woman's side, by the way. If your father's Jewish and your mother's a Cushite, you're not a Jew, right? If your mother's Jewish and your father's a Cushite, you're Jewish. Yeah. Ipso facto. Anyhow, not Hagar nor Abraham's second wife, right? Lineage comes from Sarah or mother, so the mother is really important. Father said very clearly, True Father said, I could not bless mankind without true mother. Couldn't be. There would be no blessing if Father was by himself or couldn't get married or whatever happened. He could not do it. The conditions for a mother to be true mother are unbelievable. She had to have 12 children. 12 children. She had 14. But 12 children as a condition to become the true mother of who? How many women could fulfill that? I don't know any myself. So true mother is going around the world blessing mankind and teaching true familyism. Familyism is better than communism, is better than Marxism, is better than Darwinism. Familyism is winning over Christianity. And that's the secret. That's the original mind of human beings. That's universal. 100% of all human beings come from a man and woman, right? 100%. Nobody cannot come from one man and one woman. Can't be done, right? So that's the original nature of God that we're trying to explain to people, and the world is fertile ground to receive the freedom of monogamy. The Christian church has been the greatest force and source of happiness for all human beings on earth. Everything, right? So let's support True Mother, be like Zacchaeus. But be like Zacchaeus, give what you can, right? They're asking donations to the National Victory Fund. Give what you can. I believe this is really important. Give $25 if you can. They want 5,000, but make a deal. Sorry. Give to schools in Africa. Give them, you can put on your credit card if you go to Facebook, WFWP, and you go to the WFWP side of Facebook. It says donate, and you can say you can make a monthly donation. Make it $5 a month out of your credit card. It's nothing, right? You're not going to get hurt. You're not going to lose your house by $5 a month. $5 a month. Contribute. You'll be in the line of sheep. The Japanese women are going to protect you from Satan's devils. You're going to be protected. Give to schools in Africa. I really strongly recommend it. I would love to see WFWPC. What's happening in San Diego? All those people are giving to schools in Africa. What happened to them? They got God. That's why. And don't forget Family Church of San Diego, by the way. We need a little something just to keep us going too. So I know there's big, these are big, this is worldwide, this is National Victory Fund, this is worldwide fund, and this is our little local fund. Don't cheat any of them. Amen? Amen. Amen. God bless you. Thank you very much.